In this video, we're going to be comparing the A34 and A54 5G's camera. Stay tuned. Alright everyone, hopefully you guys are having a good day. Hopefully everyone is safe out there. Of course, on the left side we have the A34 5G and on the right we have the A54 5G. Now obviously these cameras are pretty different and I think you guys are going to see that in a second. But in this video we're going to be comparing photos and videos to see which one is better. And I'm sure you guys already know which device is going to be better, but we're just going to show you the difference between the photos and videos on both of these devices. So first and foremost, going over the specifications on these devices, the Galaxy A34 5G's front camera is going to be, of course, like a half circle or a teardrop notch, and that is going to be rated at 13 megapixels. Now with that 13 megapixel camera, we can use a wide angle mode on that, which is great. We also have 4K at 30 frames per second and 1080p at 30 frames per second, but no 1080p at 60 frames per second. On the Galaxy A54 5G, we have a 32 megapixel wide angle camera. We can also shoot at 4K at 30 frames per second and 1080p at either 60 or 30 frames per second. So we actually have something over the A34, which is of course at 60 frames per second. Now going to the rear facing cameras, first and foremost, the A34 5G has a main camera rated at 48 megapixels, and that's going to be our wide camera. Our secondary camera is going to be an 8 megapixel ultra wide camera, and our third is going to be a 5 megapixel macro. We can either record at 4K at 30 frames per second, 1080p at 30 or 60 frames per second, and of course 720p. Now going to the Galaxy A54, main camera is going to be a 50 megapixel wide camera. Our secondary is going to be a 12 megapixel ultra wide. Our third is going to be a 5 megapixel macro. And of course we can shoot at 4K at 30 frames per second, 1080p at either 30 or 60 frames per second, and 720p. Now our first test is going to be the photos, then we're going to be showing you the respective video modes. Of course, the front-facing camera on the A34 doesn't have 1080p 60 frames per second, so you're not going to be seeing one for the A34, but the A54 does, so we're going to be showing that. But let's start off with the photos first, and then go to the videos and see how this goes. And this is the Galaxy A34 at 1080p 30 frames per second. Honestly, so far I'm pretty impressed with the stabilization on both these devices. Definitely some big improvements from the A33 and the A53. Let me know what you guys think though. Alright everyone, so this is the front facing camera on the Galaxy A54. This is going to be 1080p at 30 frames per second. And this is how we're looking right here. We're kind of facing towards the sun, going out more towards the light. This is how this looks though. This is UHD or 4K, 30 frames per second on the Galaxy A34. Let me know if you guys know a difference. Let's go more towards the sun right here because kind of shading it out. But let's go ahead and walk around with this. See how the stabilization is on this. This is UHD or 4K 30 frames per second on the Galaxy A54, and this is how it looks. And the viewfinder, what I'm looking at, like at the screen right now, it looks actually really good. Can definitely see some improvements in stabilization, some tweaks in software and all that, and I'm noticing that in the pictures that I'm taking over here as well. So pretty excited about this device. And the A34 does not have 60 frames per second 1080p, but the A54 does. So I thought I'd just show it to you guys right here. But this is 1080p 60 frames per second on the Galaxy A54. This is looking great so far. Let me know what you guys think. Alright guys, so this is the Galaxy A34 4K 30 frames per second, and this is how this device is looking so far. Let me know what you guys think. Alright guys, so this is 4K 30 frames per second on the Galaxy A54. Going up to these leaves right here, it's really having a hard time with the autofocus on this camera. I don't know why. With things that are still, it does a decent job, as you guys will see right now. If you just say still, you get some amazing detail with this 4K. But when we go over to things that move a little bit more, it kind of has a harder time. There you go, it locked on right here. Autofocus isn't the best on here. That would be probably one of the cons between this and a flagship device. But of course, this is a $449 device, guys. This looks pretty good to me for that price tag. Next, we have the Galaxy A34 1080p 60 frames per second. Now we have 1080p 60 frames per second on the Galaxy A54. Little bit of an easier time, right? But this is 1080p 60 frames per second. We'll go ahead and zoom in for you guys right here. Zooming is actually way smoother than the A53 for sure on here. And lastly, we have the A34 1080p 30 frames per second. And last but not least, we have the Galaxy A54 at 1080p 30 frames per second. And this is how that looks. But as you guys can see, the A54 5G has a better camera as far as video goes and photos. I think the biggest difference is going to be in our photos. You know, we get a little better saturation, we get a little bit more vibrance and color inside of the A54. The A34 just looks a little bit more washed out. Also, I've seen with textures, if you guys are taking photos, you know, clothing and things like plushes and stuff like that, the A54 5G is just going to have better textured photos. So you guys are going to actually be able to see the textures on the Galaxy A54 5G. So it's pretty clear to see that the Galaxy A54 has a better camera, but considering it is $100 price difference between the A34 and A54 5G, I think the A34 5G is still actually pretty good. So again, let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. What phone are you going to pick up? What camera do you like better? And if you have any questions, leave them down below as well. Yeah guys, hopefully enjoy this video. If you did, please leave a like down below, as well subscribing and hitting the notification bell if you guys want to be notified every time I upload a new video. This has been Safan from TechRight. Peace out, Tech Gang.